Donald Trump has just announced that he has held a phone call with Vladimir Putin. They covered issues on the Middle East, energy, artificial intelligence, but the concentration of that conversation was Ukraine. And Donald Trump said they discussed that they agreed they wanted to stop the war, stop the deaths in the Russia-Ukraine war. They have agreed to visit each other's nations. Trump has said he will call Zelensky in the very near future, and he said that he and Putin agreed to have respective teams start negotiations immediately. There you can see Donald Trump now posting on it. We both agreed we want to stop the millions of deaths taking place in the war with Russia and Ukraine. And President Putin even used my very strong campaign motto. He says, common sense. We both believe very strongly in it. And he said we agreed to work together very closely, including visiting each other's nations. We have also agreed to have our respective teams start negotiations immediately. So a highly significant moment. Donald Trump is wasting no time. He's been involved in the Middle East. He is now getting involved in Ukraine. Let's bring in our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn. And so, Dominic, it seems that the negotiations are going to get underway pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bombshell notification from Donald Trump from the White House following a bombshell speech by his defence secretary in Brussels. But just to reiterate, because it is very significant, Mark, is what he's saying here, saying that after this 1.5-hour phone call, we agreed to work together. He is saying, the American president agreeing with the Russian leader, very closely, including visiting each other's nations. And the Kremlin has, in the last 5 minutes or so, confirmed that Putin and Trump have agreed to meet, not quite sure where, but there will be, it seems, another Trump-Putin summit. We've also agreed, the White House, or Donald Trump is saying there, to have our respective teams start negotiations immediately. And this is the significant bit also. We will begin by calling President Zelensky of Ukraine to inform him of the conversation. So that's a break. You know, we have seen all day efforts by not just John Healey, the British Defence Secretary, but other members of NATO to kind of stick fingers in the dike, the crumbling dike of NATO solidarity and unity after what Pete Hegseth said, the Defence Secretary there, trying to give the impression that there is still unity, whereas that impression, as I say, is crumbling, because it's a break with what has been 3 years of firm and determination by NATO members to be united and behind the principle of not talking about Ukraine. Nothing is discussed about Ukraine without Ukraine. So we now have a break with that. We have the American president meeting on the phone, talking for an hour and a half with his Russian counterpart, not including Ukraine, discussing Ukraine, but not including Ukraine. And only after that meeting, they're going to phone Zelensky and inform him about that meeting. That's significant. And also, I think the question that arises out of this immediately is when he says we're going to, or we've instructed our teams to start negotiations. What teams are those? Are these going to be bilateral negotiations between America? Is he talking about his team, the Americans and the Russians, discussing Ukraine's fate? Or is that going to include Ukraine? A lot of questions out of this, of course, and we've heard from the Kremlin already. Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesperson, confirmed the call happened and saying they discussed issues relating to the exchange. The American side, the American side, he says it will fulfil all agreements reached related to the exchange. So the Americans seem to have made, Donald Trump seems to have made commitments in that phone call with Vladimir Putin that the Russians expect him to hold himself to. What are those commitments?